Phillies, the 2022 World Series champions. For many people, the presence of the Phillies in the World Series is a big surprise. They weren't even sure this team would be in the playoffs. And when they finally made it, they did it with the worst record among the National League teams. In the wild card playoffs, many people also thought they couldn't beat the St. Louis Cardinals. But they did it, sweeping them in their home in 2 games. Against the world champions, the Atlanta Braves, who won 101 games in the regular season. Well, they beat them in 4 games. This result was even more astonishing than the one in the wild card series. Now, how could this happen? In my opinion, this team had already the different elements needed to be in the playoffs since 3 years ago. But they had terrible Septembers and one of the worst baseball bullpens in the history of the game. But the ownership and the management did not give up. And for this year, they continued improving the team as much as they could. And they hired players that filled the holes they had. The bullpen in the first place. In the second place, they needed to improve their offense. And in the third place, they needed a 4th and 5th starting pitcher to trust. In the bullpen, they hired successful pitchers, including several closers with other teams like Corey Knebel, Brad Hand, and Jeurys Familia. They also hired other 2 relievers who had little MLB experience like Andrew Bellotti and Nick Nelson. Later, in the middle of the season, they traded with the Cubs for David Robertson. Corey Knebel got injured in the middle of August, and Jeurys Familia simply did not work. That I remember, there was never such a good number of relievers incorporated to this team in many years. Plus, they had 2 of the best relievers and harder throwers of the game, like Jose Alvarado and Sir Anthony Dominguez. Also, the team found the chance to have in the bullpen a very good starting pitcher for 7 years, Zach Eflin, who was for more than 2 months in the injury list for a right knee problem, but wasn't needed as a starter when he returned. I think this is definitely one of the best bullpens in the majors and one of the reasons why this team held up for the postseason. Why they won the 3 first playoffs and why they have a legitimate opportunity to win the World Series this year. The offense in this team was not having consistency in the previous years. They scored fewer runs than we thought they could in many games. As you know, baseball is probably the most unpredictable major sport there is. The best teams in baseball lose around 60 games a year. And the worst teams in baseball win about 50 games a year or more. And we can see frequently teams that score more than 10 runs in a game, and then the next day they are shut out by the same team they outscored before. This is something that I don't like very much in this sport. But it is something of the magic that it has. And that's one of the reasons why a team like the Padres that ended 22 games behind the Dodgers in the regular 2022 season eliminated them. Now, the Phillies have one of the best offensive players in baseball. Last season's MVP, Bryce Harper, who just was named also MVP of the National League Championship Series, hitting .419 with 5 homers, 11 RBIs, 6 doubles, and 1.351 OPS in these 2022 playoffs. His on-base plus slugging against the Braves was 1.592, one of the highest ever, and 1.250 against San Diego. Very, very high numbers for this guy that was signed for 13 years and $330 million. This is what was expected from that point where he was hired. We also have Rhys Hoskins, who unbelievably hit also 5 homers and 11 RBIs drove it in. The same numbers as Bryce Harper in this postseason. This was a guy who hit 18 homers in his first 34 Major League Baseball games, and has been driving in many runs since his debut in 2017. The Phillies also have probably the best catcher in baseball and the fastest running catcher there is, JT Realmuto, who this year became only the second catcher in history to hit more than 20 home runs and steal more than 20 bases. He also hit 2 very important homers in the postseason. But as I said before, this was not enough, especially for a team that had one of the worst bullpens in baseball history. So the management acquired also 2 hitters, Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, who had hit many homers and drove in a good amount of runs in the last seasons, including 32 homers for Schwarber and 34 home runs and 100 RBIs for Castellanos the previous season. These 2 additions made this team look huge before the season began, but the results were not what were expected. And other teams who had also acquired players and were winning more games made the expectations for the Phillies fall a lot. And many analysts just thought that they were a second-class team. The general manager of the team did several moves to improve something that he already thought was among the best. The most important move, in my opinion, was to name Rob Thompson the new manager, a very experienced baseball man with a humble personality that makes every player believe in himself and does not create unnecessary pressure. These things make a baseball team better, and they are more important than any game strategy. Then, after that, Brandon Marsh, Noah Syndergaard, and David Robertson were acquired. Marsh has been a very useful player for the Phillies, hitting more than their previous center fielders and hitting homers in crucial moments like the last game against the Braves in the DS playoff. The third important addition for this team has been two starting pitchers, Bailey Falter and Noah Syndergaard. Falter came in from the minor leagues to start games, especially when Zach Eflin got injured in June. He didn't pitch very well in the first games, but he was constantly improving. At the end of July, he allowed only 2 runs in a 6-inning start. In August, he allowed only 1 run in a couple of 6-inning starts. And he continued pitching better until his last start of the season when he shut out the Nationals in 6 innings in Washington. In my opinion, this pitcher, Falter, he is almost as trustable as any of the top 3 starters in the team. And finally, Noah Syndergaard. This man impressed everybody when he started with the Mets. In his first seasons, with great speed, he managed to strike out more than 200 batters twice. But in 2020, he needed Tommy John surgery, and in August 2022, Philadelphia got him in a trade. He is now pitching with several miles less on his speed, but he continues to feel dominant and a winner, and has learned to use secondary pitches to make the outs. He's been a steady pitcher for the Phillies, throwing 6 innings or more several times, including a 7-inning 1-run game in August and a 5.2-inning shutout in his last start of the season. These 2 pitchers make the Phillies rotation one of the most complete in all baseball, leaving Kyle Gibson as a less needed starter and Zach Eflin to be an excellent presence in the bullpen. Any baseball analyst must consider the 2022 Philadelphia Phillies a very complete team and capable of beating any other team in baseball. In May, they almost swept the Dodgers, the best team in the regular season, with 111 victories at Dodger Stadium in a 4-game series. They were only 1 strike away from winning the last game, but Gavin Lux drove in a couple of runners with a walk-off hit, and they beat them 5-4. Anyway, the 7-game series between the 2 teams was a 4-3 victory for the Phillies. This was only one of 2 lost series for the Dodgers in the whole season. Philadelphia also won their 2022 regular season series to several very good teams, including their NLCS rivals, the Padres, who they beat 4-3. Also, their wildcard playoff rivals, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers. The Phillies just beat a few days ago the San Diego Padres, becoming this season's National League champions. Like with the Braves, I was sure they were going to beat them because even San Diego, having a great pitching staff, the Phillies had a better one. The offense was commanded by Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, and JT Realmuto, who did all of them their job. So the Houston Astros swept the Yankees and became the team the Phillies will play against in the World Series. The Astros have very good pitchers. The probable Cy Young winner in Justin Verlander, with one of the lowest ERAs in the history of the game, 1.75, coincidentally in 175 innings, followed by other very good pitchers like Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Lance McCullers, and Luis Garcia in the rotation. The bullpen is one of the best numbers in the history of the game, with closer Ryan Presley, who had 33 saves, 2.25 ERA, 65 strikeouts in 48.1 innings. Brian Abreu, who had a 1.94 ERA in 55 games. Rookie Hunter Brown, who had 0.89 ERA in 7 games. Seth Martinez, who had a 2.09 ERA in 29 games. Rafael Montero, with a 2.37 ERA in 71 games. And Hector Neris with a 1.01 WHIP in 70 games. Their offense is very fearful, with the powerful slugger Jordan Alvarez, who hit 37 home runs, drove in 97 runs, hit for .306, and had a 1.019 OPS in the regular season. Kyle Tucker, who hit 30 home runs and drove in 107 RBIs. Jose Altuve, who hit 300 with 28 home runs. Alex Bregman, who had 93 RBIs, and rookie sensation shortstop Jeremy Pena, who was also named the ALCS Most Valuable Player, who hit 22 home runs in the regular season. In my opinion, this will be a very tough battle, and I can't choose one team over the other. The Astros have the chance of dominating with their pitching staff, the Phillies offense. But their hitters will not have an easy battle against the starters and the bullpen of Philadelphia. Against, to what many could believe, this would be, in my opinion, a low-score World Series. I believe the matchup would be extremely interesting, and the Phillies would fight more than what the analysts still think they could do. But I cannot forget what I said at the beginning. Baseball's magic, where so many times logical analysis fails to these unexpected situations. A bad hit ball falling for a hit, the defense positioning, an error, a fan's interference, or simply a pitcher not having a good day. All these things can change the real expectations. No matter who wins the World Series, I have to be grateful to the owners and management of the Phillies, because they never stopped believing they could be competitive, even though there are so many teams with great players and getting each time more stars incorporated. As I said before, many baseball analysts consider the Phillies a team with few possibilities of being among the best. Even though, as I said initially, they filled very well the needs they had, and the resulting team is as good as any. It will be a hard battle, but the Philadelphia Phillies can definitely win it all in 2022. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I will be talking to you again in the next 2 days. So thank you very much.